I'm Kathleen Trapphagen, and I co-facilitate the Grantmakers for Education Out of School Time Impact Group along with Rebekah Goldberg. And so as people are coming in, I'll just do a little bit of a background intro of what we're going to do today, and then really going to spend most of our time today with our speakers. So we're going to talk today about summer. I know that for many of you who are deep into the field of summer, talking about summer at the end of April is super late to be talking about summer. And I know that you've been in it, you're in it, as Aaron Dworkin says, like 12 months a year. But we are going to just do that today. We do have, a couple months before these summer programs get going. And there is a lot to say. And I know that if you are in this field, you're probably getting, 3 or 4 invitations to web seminars about summer per day. And so our particular take on it this afternoon is that coming from an overall funder perspective, what we're interested in, what we've been talking about for ever since the American Rescue Plan got passed, basically, is how can philanthropy work to catalyze the expenditures and the support of American Rescue Plan and school and partnerships with school districts and communities to provide high quality, holistic, comprehensive summer learning opportunities for all kids. And we are all, I think, super excited about the potential of this happening, with never having seen before this amount of money that's coming from the federal government that can possibly be used for these type of partnerships to provide these types of learning experiences for young people. And what we've definitely seen that throughout the field, there are a lot of different creative things that philanthropy is involved in to catalyze these partnerships, and certainly supporting where the field is leading. And so we're just going to talk about 3 of them today, three overall, and then within those, there's many things going on. And I know that all of you have many things going on as well. So as usual, please feel free to use the chat. So use the chat to talk about, if you're a funder, what you have done, just so that your peers will understand that and maybe learn from it, and ask questions in the chat, provide answers in the chat, and then there will be opportunity if you would like to ask your question live. You'll get an opportunity to do that. And then if you're a practitioner on the call, we love to hear what your perspective is too. What new things are you doing for summer programming this year? Did you get new funding? How did you get it? What are some opportunities? What are some challenges? So we can have like several conversations going on at once, because that seems to be like the Zoom world. So that's us. And then before, I'm going to introduce our speakers in a minute, but as I do that, if people could introduce themselves in the chat. And why don't you just tell us what spring looks like where you are? And so let's have your name, your pronouns, your organization, and what does spring look like for you today? And as you do that, I'm going to intro. So we have with us today, we have 3 separate initiatives that we're going to talk about. So Nancy Gannon from FHI 360, and we're going to spotlight these folks, and Broderick Clark from the National Summer Learning Association are going to talk about a partnership that has been supported by the Wallace Foundation and just kicked off, and that is the district. What is it exact? What is the official name, Nancy? I don't want to get it wrong.
District Summer Learning Network.
District Summer Learning Network. Okay, great. So that's going to be Nancy and Stephen. And Taisha Hardy-Sellers is with us here from Lilly Endowment. And they have had a long-standing strategy of supporting a network of intermediaries in Indiana who are doing a lot of work on this issue. So Taisha's going to tell us about that. And then we also have Broderick Clark. I think sorry, I messed up who's who. So let me go back and start that again. So we have Henry DeHart and Broderick Clark. They are from National Summer Learning Association and American Camp Association. They are providing an initiative called Campifying Summer School. That's supported by New York Life. And then we have Nancy Gannon and Stephen Sellers, who are talking with us about the Wallace.
Stephen Peters.
Stephen Peters. Okay, I'm just going to stop talking, and I'm going to turn this over to the people who are going to be the ones giving you the correct information. So the first question is going to go to Henry and Broderick. Tell us what you're doing, what the goals are, what some of the challenges are, and what opportunities you're providing for kids this summer.
Absolutely. Happy to grab the microphone here for a moment. Super excited about this partnership between the American Camp Association and the National Summer Learning Association. We believe in the power of summer without a doubt. And one of the two tenets that we really lift up a lot of times when we talk about summer learning is this idea of improvement as well as innovation. And when I think about this initiative that we have to campify summer school, it's a perfect opportunity to blend the very best of what we know about the camp experience and how valuable that is, and to intentionally connect folks from that world with school districts in a very formalized and coordinated way. So the goal of the school camp partnership certainly is to foster greater collaboration and synergy between those two worlds, and to create a week-long sort of camp experience for young people rising into high school. If you can imagine going back to when you were an 8th grader getting ready to go into 9th grade, what that looked like, felt like, and sounded like for you. We believe that when you bring young people together in a camp experience, that can be incredibly valuable for that school community. It can make the transition from middle school into high school be a lot more seamless. It gives an opportunity for the school in a structured sort of camp environment to talk a little bit about what their school culture is, and really create sort of a seamless pathway for young people to experience a little bit of the school community before walking through the halls on that first day. And so, we recognize that collaboration often needs some support. So we're also looking to seed into this relationship between the school districts and camps as providing coaching supports as well. And so we have a really pretty amazing team of field consultants and coaches that we plan to deploy into this situation as well, to provide some just that ongoing coaching and support to broker that relationship, and once again make sure that that is really a high level of coordination there. So we believe that there's a real opportunity here to demonstrate what happens when you intentionally connect structures that we understand about how things get siloed off in education and that kind of thing. We want to break down those silos and create this intentional link and connection between the power of the camp experience and school districts, and do that in a way that is going to create. I just want to be at the camp without a doubt for that week, just to feel what that's like, because it's going to be incredible for those young people and families. And I think that's going to set not only the young people up for success, but also the staff on both ends for success. I know, Henry, you want to add a little bit of spice there?
Great. Yeah, thanks, Broderick. And I agree. It's been wonderful to partner with NSLA on this initiative. A quick thank you to Marlene, who for New York Life being a big partner in this initiative. We appreciate that. Really excited about this opportunity. Camps, there's a subset of camps that for a long time have been community partners with schools and have good relationships there. Given the incredible challenges that children and students have faced over the past couple of years, we really have an eagerness to accelerate that. And with the American Rescue Plan funding there's an opening that there hasn't really been ever before. And so we're pushing in some of the challenges that we're having to bridge. And this program is we believe will be the bridge between this, is that for the camps who have not been community partners in the past, while we've got great research about how a camp experience can support and accelerate learning outcomes, it's a different language, right? It's a different framework, and camp folks have to learn how to live in that framework. And if they haven't done it, it takes some time to do that. So there's some natural barriers there that we believe that this initiative will help accelerate the learning between. And then, as you can expect, we were eager coming out of the summer to jump in, and schools were experiencing much of what camps experienced last summer, where there were staffing challenges, there were logistical challenges, the stress and anxiety were higher, and schools were having trouble making time for innovation. And so there wasn't an open doorway necessarily where there weren't already relationships. And so this initiative is bringing funding to the table and asking camps and schools to partner together and match that with funding from the ESSER funds, hopefully. So being able to provide some funding, being able to provide the technical support to help bridge the barriers there, where we're working to create collaborations that we think will last for a long time in the future. Given the timing of this, we're starting small this summer and with the hope of expanding next summer. It's a 2-year initiative. So we have sent out RFPs to a number of camps. We'll get those back in the next week or so, and we're excited to begin actually selecting programs. We had to start with programs that already had some level of relationship with their schools, but this is extending and expanding. And we're focused on folks in rural areas or lower income areas. And the benefit here is that the camps are already in rural areas, and so there's natural connection there. But we're really looking forward to expanding this initiative based on what we learned this year, next year, and then talking about the potential moving forward.
Just want to lift up it's clearly going to be a great experience for those young people, but there's the additional benefit of having that professional development for staff that I think you mentioned, Dan Henry, a bit as well, and it kind of feeds into our mantra of no professional development about kids without kids, right? So here's a clear opportunity to have these young people present, certainly experience and all the benefits of that experience, but staff participating as a student as well, to learn different strategies, techniques. Again, this is about improvement as well as innovation, and we're once again excited to be connected with American Camp Association to make this happen.
And I'll just end by saying camps are really eager and excited about this opportunity and strengthening their ability to be community partners for schools.
Thank you for that. So it will be, how many projects are you going to have this year?
So we our goal is to have 10 sites, camp school partnerships for this first summer. And we hope that most of those will extend into a second summer as well, based on what we learn. But we're really hoping to be able to celebrate what we learn and what we accomplish and expand the program going into next year.
Okay. And so you've got a kind of sort of closed RFP, basically, that you put out to and the camps they're going to come into your 2 organizations. And are they coming in partnership already with their school districts?
So it's a blend, knowing that we were on a tight timeline and there's a fixed, the fixed 3-year parameters of the ESSER funding. We didn't want to miss this summer. Knowing that there was a tight timeline, we had vetting conversations with camps, and we were looking for programs that had some level of relationship, so they weren't starting from scratch. We've sent out the RFP, I think, to 19 organizations, with the hopes of having 10 of those that are able to actually deliver a program this year. Some are further along in that relationship, and naturally, with this funding, can find additional funding and serve more children in kind of established programs that are modified with the learning of the cohort. And some have relationships but didn't have the program and are hoping to develop this. So it's really a blend.
Okay.
But we had to pre-screen in order to hit the timeline with the summer so quick.
Right. Okay, all right, that's great. And it's focused on rising 8th graders? Broderick, is that what you said? Is that the case everywhere?
So we're focused on middle school, and with an intent to find especially middle schoolers who are transitioning to high school. But
Okay,
some of the programs, maybe people have just recently transitioned into middle school. So we're really trying to focus on those transition periods there. But again, given the timing, we have put hopes and dreams out there, but are allowing some flexibility in the program design from the collaborative discussion between the school and the camp. Broderick, would you add to that? Sorry, I keep jumping in.
No, no worries. I mean, that's right on. You know, I mean, building the flexibility in, but with that focus and emphasis on those transition periods is sort of the direction we're going in, no doubt.
Susan, you raised your hand. Do you want to ask a quick question?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up to that. Henry, you're talking about, and also Broderick, you talked about a 1-week resident camp experience. And I'm wondering, for those camp programs that have established environmental education connections with the schools locally, but not a resident camp experience, is there any possibility for accommodation there so that they can get technical assistance to actually develop their programs?
Right, so we're actually not only approaching resident camp situations. We have a mix of resident and day camp opportunities. We want to harvest the learning from both of those types of programs and be able to extend that. We see benefits in both of those arenas. I know that at least a handful of the schools that have, the camps that have received the RFP are building this based on environmental education. So we do have a subset and some of them are not, but we're really trying to keep this open to whatever format fits the relationship the best. And we see benefits in both a day program and an overnight program.
That's great. You know, and with our grantees that are K-12, we're really seeing a resurgence in social emotional wellness and the discussion around the soft skills that I know in your camp community have been discussed with research that you've conducted about the benefits of play, supplementing academic preparedness. And so you may find a little bit of a different, more receptive group in the K-12 folks because they are talking about how social emotional wellness prepares students academically and also for college and career. So just wanted to throw that in there too.
Yeah, thanks for that, Susan. Well, thanks for this also introduction to what's happening and also to New York Life for supporting this work. If you click on the link that I put in of speakers' bios, Henry and Broderick's contact info are both in there. We're going to bring them back into the conversation after we talk to Taisha and the FHI folks, but you can definitely reach out to them and follow up with them about this. And then just one last question for you, Henry and Broderick. When are you going to know where it's going to take place this summer?
You got it, Henry.
Great. Yeah. So we have RFPs coming back next week, and then we'll have a selection process following that. We're trying to establish this as quickly as possible for the benefits of the camps. We're trying to fit these programs in late summer, right before the transition back to school. Right. But in the next couple of weeks, probably 3 weeks, I would say we would have the programs selected.
Okay. And we will also be in touch with you, and then we can put a little update about that in some of the emails that we send out to this group. So terrific. Okay, I would love to bring Taisha Hardy-Sellers into the conversation. So Taisha works with Susan at Lilly Endowment and is supporting and has supported way before any of this ever happened, a network of intermediaries to do infrastructure, capacity building work, as we all know how important intermediaries are to the stability and the success of the field. So Taisha, can you give us an intro into what you're doing and why?
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. I wanted to share a little bit about the intermediaries that we work with. So for about 30 years, the endowment has invested in a network of organizations that provide capacity building, technical support, consultation, collaboration efforts, facilitation of those collaborations for youth-serving organizations. And so in the chat, I believe, or the whiteboard would be more information in terms of the core group that we've worked with that includes Indiana Youth Institute, Marion County Commission on Youth, the Indiana Youth Service Association, IACRA, and Indiana After School Network. And I saw that Lakshmi is on the call today from IAN. These organizations are in touch with a number of stakeholders that support youth programming and youth directly. And so that includes the Indiana Department of Education. It includes other groups, governmental entities that have opportunities for youth-serving organizations to receive funding, some of the federal funding that came in. And there are two examples that I added to that whiteboard as well, of funding elements that these organizations have been connecting some of the youth-serving organizations to this funding by way of ensuring that they are aware of the funding that is available, and because of their relationships with these entities, they're able to then also support efforts to direct funding to groups through RFP process or through workshops that provide technical assistance in order for these organizations to take a look at this opportunity. The youth serving intermediaries also take a look at the trends within the youth serving field, trying to better understand what the issues are, the challenges and opportunities, and then provide workshops and other supportive elements to ensure that this youth serving field has access to resources. The endowment, like I said, for a number of years has invested in these organizations, operational support, as well as programming support. The operational support is to help the organizations provide the service in terms of the capacity building and workshops and whatnot, but then also program support. So if there is a specific area in which the youth serving intermediaries believe that there is a need, then they also gain some support from the endowment in order to address that need on behalf of those youth serving organizations. The endowment also invests in a collaborative program that is focused on summer learning. And so summer learning and enrichment, actually. It is called the Summer Youth Program Fund. That fund has been operating for more than 30 years. It includes other funders within Marion County, which is basically central Indiana. And so a total of 10 funders contribute to a pool of funds in order to enable almost 200 organizations to provide youth programming. These organizations have different programs and services. It can be within the arts, sports, academic support, just a number of different types of programs, but there are many that focus on academic support as well as social and emotional learning. And one of the intermediaries that I listed, the Marion County Commission on Youth, is the entity that helps with bridging some of the school and community-based collaborations. Also, IAN, because many of these Marion County youth programs are year-long, IAN has also supported with a number of workshops, summits, and consultation in terms of professional development and other ways in order to strengthen these organizations so they can have quality programming.
Terrific. Thank you, Taisha. And if people have questions about the work that you're doing, I just wanted to ask you one quick question before we turn it over. So I know, can you talk about how you think it was valuable to have those partnerships between between Lilly Endowment and the set of intermediaries, and then between the set of the intermediaries themselves, and then between the intermediaries and government and school districts, and then the pandemic happened and all of this happened, but you've been doing this for so years. Can you just talk about like how it's super important to basically build that?
So I'll talk about the value first. So the value is that just looking at the landscape in terms of youth-serving organizations within the state of Indiana, there are so many. And so the network provides additional capacity to understand what the needs are of all of these different groups. And so these groups span from, faith-based organizations or standalone youth programs or entities that have youth programming, but that may not be the only thing that they do. And so the value is having so many groups that are focused on youth-serving organizations every day. And so with that, that means that they have additional resources that are available to them, not just the funding, but the capacity building and the skill building resources as well. In terms of the reason why this was important to invest in, more than 4,000 organizations were listed on the registry saying that they needed some support. We don't know if that's all the youth-serving organizations, and I'm sure it's not within the state of Indiana. But it was important for the endowment to look at youth and how to address the compelling challenges of youth in Indiana. And it's actually one of the 3 pillars of the endowment. So the endowment has a focus on religion, has a focus on community development and education. And within education, looking at how to support the healthy development of youth is prized by the endowment because it's what the founders saw that we needed to do in order to ensure that not only our youth, but our families were stable and strong and had all of the opportunities that they needed to have the best quality of life. So this network has actually benefited the organizations by increasing their capacities. And so not only the investment in resources, financial resources, but we've seen organizations grow. The quality of the organization has expanded, and we've seen more organizations being able to serve more youth by way of accessing all of these different resources.
Yeah, that's terrific. Thank you. So definitely ask Taisha some questions in the chat and we'll bring you back into the conversation in just a bit. So now we're going to hear from Nancy Gannon and Stephen Peters. They're both with FHI 360. FHI 360 is managing a new initiative that's supported by the Wallace Foundation, which is the District Summer Learning Network. And this initiative is focused on districts. So Nancy and Stephen, will you sort of give us a sense of what's happening with that?
Absolutely. Thank you, Kathleen. And we have some slides if, great, perfect. So you can skip to the next slide. That's just an introduction. My name is Nancy Gannon. I am working with Dr. Stephen Peters on the District Summer Learning Network, which is funded through the generosity of the Wallace Foundation. We work with 45 districts across the country, and we're working on a paradigm shift from around summer learning to move folks from a deficit lens that focuses on remediation to an assets-based perspective that aligns summer learning with what we know all young people need right now. We have, if you go to the next slide, we have 3 key pillars that we center the work around. One is equity in summer learning. We're also stressing the importance of whole child development that focuses on providing SEL and building that into the learning experience. And we have a real focus also on community partnerships. We know that bringing in partners and shifting from transactional to transformational partnerships is really critical. Oftentimes, community organizations know our young people well, know their communities well, And while we can talk a lot about the philanthropy that provided this entire experience, we're really going to focus a lot today on specifically that community partnership and sort of the two-way street, the way that philanthropy brought more community partners into this work, and then a community partnership that provided some philanthropy. And I'm going to let Dr. Peters talk about both of those. But if you go to the next slide, I'll just give you a little bit more of a picture of the project itself. So the 45 districts across the country are each working on a 3-year roadmap for summer that focuses on these 3 pillars and really looks 3 years out to think about what a great summer learning experience would look like, and then builds backwards from there to think about how to use ESSER and other funds strategically to pilot practices and to build capacity into their districts so that over the course of the 3 years, they can really build out that experience for young people. And if you go to the next slide, specifically what we provide for districts, our most important resource is a team of consultants who bring a wealth of experience and work very closely individually with each of the districts, meeting them where they are. There's also a whole group professional development, small learning communities, an array of tools. But as I say, the real juice here is the transformational coaching that our consultants provide to each of the districts. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Peters. If you go to the next slide, he'll talk you through the 2 ways that we see philanthropy being really critical in this work.
Thank you, Nancy. It's great to be here and to listen to the rich conversation about the emerging educational opportunities for children in our country. And so one of the things that I noticed as a sitting superintendent when the pandemic hit in 2020, is the fact that we can no longer do this work in isolation, that we truly need collaboration. And part of the DSLN network affords the opportunity for 40 plus districts to have the ears and the eyes of others around them in a safe and constructive space. And I think that is the power of the work, that it is a safe and constructive space. And so part of the partnership grants that Wallace is providing to DISLN, which we call DSLN, is a $5,000 grant for partnership planning, where school districts can sit with their partners and pretty much hone in on the idea that we all know as educators, that those closest to the problems always deserve a seat at the table to help solve those problems. So in the reverse of school districts asking partners for money and for this or that, Wallace is affording us the opportunity to issue $5,000 partnership grants for the planning purposes with partners. In addition to that, each district has an opportunity to bring their partner to the National Summer Learning Conference. And so the extension of that relationship, securing it as a trusted partnership, unfolds as we continue to do this work together. Other community partnerships, there are students in the network who are learning how to play golf for the first time. You can see behind me, I have golf clubs everywhere, putters in the house, in the garage, everywhere, car. And I wish that I had the opportunity to learn to play golf at an earlier age. I didn't start until my 30s. But now young students are being able to be introduced to the sport and other activities through community partnerships. One of our districts, next slide, please. One of our partnering districts, next slide, please, lays in South Carolina, and Florence 3, on the heart work of the great Darla Moore, who is a South Carolinian, pledged $25 million to build an education center in the small rural area of one of our districts. It's a center for education and workforce development in her hometown. It's a partnership between her foundation, one of the universities and technical colleges, and the district, the school district. I love the name. It's called the Continuum. It provides 2 4-year degrees as well as dual enrollment courses for high school students, workshop development certificate programs for K through 12 students, and it's 46,000 square feet. A facility nestled in a small rural town truly allows students to be able to lay down at night and dream and realize that those dreams can become true, right? We offer through Discipline an examination and reflection on the work and reimagining what the summer learning experience is like as an extension of the school year. One of the other power pieces for me as a former superintendent and principal and teacher is the fact that I think we, through the network and the partnership, both the philanthropy and the community partnerships, enable school districts to really align systems to the realities that we face right now. That nobody has ever done this work before. And while there are ESSER funds and other opportunities for school districts to tap into resources, we believe that the richness relies in the community partnerships and other grants that are available to schools. And we are excited about this collaboration. We are grateful to the Wallace Foundation for providing these opportunities for 40+ districts with the opportunity, I believe, to add more as we unveil the roadmaps for the 1 to 3 year period. And so, Nancy, I'm going to pass it back to you.
Yeah, so we are expanding next year. We started with 45. We will add between 40 and 60 more districts, I think. And we're starting the recruitment now. We're going to also add on a pilot that is a collaboration with SEAs so that the SEAs can bring in a cohort from their state and learn together with the cohort. So we're looking forward to that. And please feel free to drop questions in the chat.
Great. Thank you for that. So I think we'll bring everybody back into the conversation now. And we're going to start out just with a quick question. And then as you all are thinking about your questions, throw them in the chat and you can either ask them yourselves or I can ask them out of the chat, but I'll just start us out. So, and actually Gavin was in the chat, had put something that kind of signaled this question, which is about the challenge of balancing short and mid and long-term perspective in the work that you're doing right now. So we all have been living in every day is an emergency for quite a while now. And I wonder how you are thinking about that and how you are also helping your constituents. That's not maybe quite the right word, but like for you all at FHI 360, your districts, or for the campifying project, you know, your sites that will be initiating, and for Taisha, your intermediaries. Like, how do you help them think about that? Balancing doing it today, yesterday, and then thinking about, you know, both next summer and then the summers after that, where you're not going to have the huge money from the feds anymore. So anybody can start.
I'll jump in, Kathleen, and say that it is hard in this moment in time to get districts to, you know, they have an array of urgent issues beyond anything I've ever seen in 33 years of working in education. So to get them to think 3 years out rather than trying to put out the fires they have. And so it's a balance. You know, we understand and are empathetic to the fact that they might not have a lot of bandwidth to think out, but they also feel a real urgency around the sustainability issue. And we all know, everybody who's worked in education knows that sometimes the wealth comes in, but always it disappears, and figuring out how to build that sustainability. So we've had a lot of conversations and strategy building around that, and how to braid funds and stack funds in a way that allows heavy piloting right now and capacity building right now that will help sustain the work in the future.
Yeah, thanks for that. Henry or Taisha or Broderick, do you want to get in there on this?
Yeah,
And
I think
everyone doesn't have to answer every question either. So feel free to be like, no.
I think our answer is very similar. Is from a national level, this has been a long-term initiative to grow the community partnerships between camps and schools. And what we have is a short-term opportunity to provide innovation through the ESSER fundings and philanthropic funding that creates the space so that we can gather the learnings and have a better insight into what the barriers and the opportunities are. And then, you know, our full intention is to go back into the national, the long-term look on this and continue that while looking for potential opportunities to extend the funding in the future. So we're seeing a short-term opportunity in what is and already has been a long-term initiative. And part of what we'll do in our cohort is try and help that, you know, we're intentionally building this to be lasting partnerships at the program level as well.
I know our intermediaries have been working with different groups to look at this short-term opportunity as a way to invest in infrastructure, to invest in the things that are needed for longer-term use, and looking at how to bring in additional knowledge-based support to then train the staff as well for longer-term application. And so some of our intermediaries have directed some of the organizations to take a look at technology, to take a look at different trainings, to take a look at ways in which they can be creative with staff retention, staff attraction, things that are the back office, the business related items, in order to help the organization be strong and use that longer term. And then also the collaborations. This is such a good time to look at how to build upon the partnerships that you have and then go deeper with those partnerships. And so to look at different ways that the organizations can be helpful, be supportive of school strategies, to take a look at the state strategy to see how these organizations throughout Indiana can link to those strategies. And so this has just been a leveraging period, but then with the clear understanding that the financial resources that are coming from the federal funds will not be here, you know, for a long period of time. So how do we look at this as a leveraging point and invest in things that will be used longer term?
Yeah, good. Thank you for that. I want to bring Stephen Fowler into the conversation. You had a question in the chat a little while ago about linking all of these systems, because I think often the providers of summer programs are providers of out-of-school time programs. So Stephen, can you come in?
It was Steve Fowler, based out of Northern California. The mention by Lilly Foundation of working with the Indiana After School Network, IAN, around, I think it was training and TA, just made me, as Kathleen said, think about how to bring some of these systems together and weave together the components of after school, out of school time, the larger ecosystem with the summer work. Thinking of the CBO providers and school-based after school staff and content, and also the technical assistance, the training that might be available, like through statewide after school networks. And so I guess it's a question first for the Hoosiers, if that's the right term, the group from Indiana, Lilly and the Indiana After School Network, but also the larger group. Just a little more specific on that partnership and that bridging between school year and summer.
The truth is, I'll share, if we do this really well, folks will begin to recognize the value and begin to demand this. I know that, you know, the expiration date on the funding is certainly there, but you know, if we can build up some will and some awareness, and as parents start to realize that, hey, you know, my child can have this experience, whether residential or day camp or otherwise, to make that transition smooth and seamless, they'll begin to ask for it and hopefully demand it. So.
Great.
Thank you,
Taisha,
thank you
yeah.
so much for that question. And so the way that we approach this work is that it's year round anyway. And so it doesn't matter about the funding sources. What we're looking at is healthy youth development. And so making sure that we have the entities that are available to help support the whole system to ensure that youth have access to every resource that they need, that we remove barriers to that access. And I know Lakshmi, I think, is still here. So if Lakshmi can chime in just a little bit to answer that question, will be helpful. And then one other thing I do want to say is that Henry from the American Camp Association, we've been working with the American Camp as well on a different initiative. It's youth programs on college campuses. And so again, our approach is to look at how can we invest in program services, systems, organizations in order for them to do their best work every day, year round. It does not matter if other funding streams are there or not. We're looking at what can be done in order to lift up these institutions so they can do their best work. But Lakshmi, I know you want to chime in.
Taisha, just by way of introduction, I'm Lakshmi Hasanadka. I'm with the Indiana After School Network, and glad to be here representing Indiana along with the Lilly Endowment and American Camp Association down the road. So, you know, I think, Steve, this is such a great question because the bridges that are necessary to serve the whole child, you know, we think of, we know the value of serving the whole child. This is not a child at school, and then it's a child in after school, it's a child in summer, it's a child during the school year. I mean, the opportunities that we have to serve this child are there all the time, and also in many different ways. And if we can coordinate and build those bridges and build those alignments between systems, we will provide much better service for that child. So I do very much appreciate, you know, what Taisha shared about the support that they're providing to the 5 statewide intermediary organizations, as well as the support that we and they are providing through our government partners. Because if we can create these bridges and alignment on a systems level, as well as at the organizational level, and when I say organizational level, I'm really thinking about the value of the partnerships between the school and the out of school time provider. That continuity for a child is incredible. So as an intermediary organization, we have the opportunity to build tools, to build resources, to build training, to help build that partnership and alignment.
Yeah, thanks for that. And thanks, Taisha, for bringing Lakshmi into the conversation. That's terrific. And I wonder with the FHA team, I know your work is really focused on summer, but I'm hoping that planning work that you are enabling districts and community-based organizations to do will actually apply to other than summer. But what do you have any thoughts about that?
Oh, that's absolutely. We think of this as almost the Trojan horse to get that experience into the school year as well, because summer is a great time to build capacity, to get teachers to try different things and in a safe space and maybe a less pressured environment. So all of these elements, centering equity, building partnerships, and proceeding with integrating whole child development, they're critical for all year round. So if districts and teachers have opportunities to practice them over the summer, then we hope that will, you know, be a major lever for integrating into the school year.
Yeah, great. Thanks. So I was also reading, I'm sure my inbox looks like everybody else's inbox, and so many things come out, but I saw the other day, the Wallace Foundation put out an email that highlighted some work that they just supported by a group of professors, I think, and also young people around designing spaces that are equitable for young people from marginalized populations. And I hope everybody had a chance. I know Rebekah Goldberg, you put that out in an email to folks yesterday, and I'm going to drop a link into the chat. But that's a long way of saying that I read that, learned some things, and one of the themes that came out of that work was just what I think you were mentioning, Nancy, earlier, which is the need to have an asset-based perspective dealing with young people. So one of the things that young people were saying is that often if they're coming into a program, there's this sort of attitude of, you know, the young people are people who need to be fixed in some way, rather than celebrating the assets that young people have, and really thinking about all young people need these developmental experiences, and they're not. And that definitely sort of harks back to like the idea of summer school, right? Like that always has a very deficit-oriented history of, you know, you failed this, you have to go to summer school, et cetera. So now we're going to run out of time. But I'd love to hear quickly from the three groups about what is it that in your work, what are some of the practices and the tangible examples of how school and community partnerships that are doing summer and after school can really help all of the adults, no matter where they work, think about embracing this asset-focused perspective for young people? And anybody can start.
I'll jump in, Kathleen. I think it's critical, and I'll start first from the perspective of a principal who had a really critical partnership in a community-based organization. And I think that the community-based organization, just the folks there, a lot of social workers and community activists, brought a lens and a set of experiences that was really different from what my teachers, especially I had a lot of young teachers who were new to the profession and were struggling with how to make sense of their own experiences. And so providing those learning opportunities for teachers to grow their own experiences around what whole child development looks like, and what being an ally looks like in the community, what understanding the culture of the students you teach, especially if that is a very different culture than your own. All of those things were powerful learning experiences for our teachers. And if I didn't have a community partner to help support that, it would have been a bigger struggle.
Yeah, I want to jump in and add, I just thought about this riveting experience that I had with literacy. And we use the theme that poverty is the enemy of public education, but literacy is the vaccine for poverty. And we partnered with our parents. We totally flipped the relationship from parents as consumers to parents as partners, wherein the school district did the 30 minutes of uninterrupted independent reading every day, and the parents did the other 30. So our children literally got 1 hour of independent reading every day. A year and a half later, our scores were off the charts, and parents were very happy. The school district was very happy, and it was something that we could solidify as a long-term partnership with parents, and then a partnership with our students. So oftentimes we think of partnerships in a singular lens, and I think we have to look at it from a multitude of ways. And I'll end with this. This is a quote from a university president to the $25 million education center in South Carolina. He says, and I quote, "There's no single path to becoming an educated person or to engaging in a meaningful vocation. Through its unique structure and flexibility, the continuum opens new doors for students across the spectrum." And I see that happening with DISLIN, with the District Summer Learning Network, because there are so many people who hear other people say, we are experiencing that too. And the power of the network is that everybody's involved, small, rural, large, urban, inner city, and collectively and collaboratively, it becomes one voice. And that voice is what's in the best interest of children in developing their new experiences.
Yeah, thanks for that. Terrific. We just have a couple minutes left, but I know if Taisha or Broderick or Henry wanted to get in on this question of an asset-based perspective and kind of how is that manifesting itself in the work that you talked about today?
One of the things that we enjoy at NSLA is our professional learning communities, and just really leveraging those spaces to do just that. That when we hear our young people being described and talked about from a deficit lens, that we have a culture where we challenge that, and just holding those spaces for folks to talk through some of those habits that we have has been a great value add. And then I also appreciate what the brother was saying around the parent partnership, putting my practitioner lens on. We invested in parents as part of our program design, right? Finding a small stipend that we can pay to have a parent partner. And I can tell you that I leaned so heavily on my parent partner, who told me all kinds of things, maybe sometimes maybe too much information, but you knew what was happening on the ground. You knew what was happening in the community. You were able to connect with faith-based libraries, all those resources. And so really encouraging folks to think about parent partnership as part of their program design.
Yeah, that's terrific. Taisha, would you like the last word?
I just wanted to add that community-based organizations, youth-serving organizations also have access to a number of other resources that help with student learning and student success. And so that could be removing the barriers to food access. It could be housing stabilization. It could be a number of things in addition to the core work that they do every day in terms of social and emotional support or tutoring or other ways in order to strengthen youth. And so it is important that we all look at the best ways to connect, because this is an ecosystem and children need every last opportunity, as well as having additional supports in their lives, and having youth workers in their lives helps them be able to look at things in a different way. It expands their opportunities, and it also helps connect them and their families to resources that they need in order for them to be stable and strong and healthy.
Yeah, that's so well said. Thank you so much, Taisha. And we certainly found that out in the pandemic, how important having those community-based organizations and youth workers with families are, and parents. We need to do a stakeholder call just on that. So we will in the future. Well, thank you so much for spending this hour with us. I'm just going to drop in the chat a couple of things that are coming up. So next time we talk will be May 20th, and we're going to focus on how after-school programs support and develop positive racial, cultural, and gender identity. If you have any ideas about that, let Rebekah and I know. And we also have this one is for funders only, but coming up on May 25th, we're going to do a briefing about mental health, SEL. What is it? Lots of words. What are the differences? What do you need to know as a funder? So thank you again, everybody, and have a terrific weekend. And we'll see you next month.